What is up, you awesome kissers? It is CistReactZ, guys, and I just got done filming 7 hours worth of content for my Last of Us 2 Let's Play. I should have the finale up by tomorrow, so if you guys want to check out the Last of Us 2 Let's Play, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if you haven't checked out check out the Let's Play, because man, you're in for some stuff. Anyway, guys, today we're reacting to Game Theory FNAF. Your pain fuels me. By, you know, the Game Theorists. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to MATPAT, and comment down below. And anyway, guys, let's get into this bot. Let's restart that. Bot! Sorry, headphones weren't in right. By the way, if you skipped the intro, I was saying that I filmed 7 hours worth of content for my Last of Us 2 Let's Play, so if you guys are ready for that finale, make sure you guys hit that like button, turn on notifications. Finale will be out tomorrow, and oh my god, he just dug out an endoskeleton. Oh, is he putting Remnant in there? Jesus Christ. MATPAT really went in for this one.
It's alive! It's alive! It's
going to kill you. Is he going to talk about Remnant this episode?
Hello, Internet!
Welcome
to
Remnant.
Game Theory, where today we're covering the scariest topic in all of FNAF lore,
I like how the light's following the... Never mind.
But not for the games. Oh, jeez, no, I hate myself, but not that much. Whew, I'll probably have to do that at some point down the line, but not today. No, what we're covering today
Hey guys, remember when you said
is
last
a different
FNAF video?
timeline. You see, there's a new monster afoot in the FNAF universe. A killer that has horrifically taken the lives of nearly a dozen people. A killer as yet unseen in the games, but one who will, after today's theory, provide us with key insights into how this whole FNAF universe works. The true nature of Remnant and how ghosts can possess endoskeletons. As I said, he hasn't been in a game yet, but I have a feeling he'll be showing up soon. Maybe as soon as the new game's security breach. But in order to know for sure, it's our job to track his movements, to understand what his goals are, and where he's headed to next. You see, last FNAF theory, we did a surface level analysis of 1:35 AM, the latest installment of the Fazbear Fright series. And boy, was that one a biggie, with huge revelations about sister location, ultimate custom knight's vengeful spirit, and the real identity, or should I say identities, of Golden Freddy. And looking back, since the Fazbear Frights books became a thing, I've done 5
that transition was slick,
covering the many connections that they have to the various facets of FNAF lore, from new strings of murders happening in 1985 to the true identity of psychic friend Fredbear. But despite all of this new FNAF talk, there's been one element I've largely been glossing over: the STITCHWRAITH. In the event that you haven't picked up any of the installments of the book series yet, let me catch you up. Each new book contains 3 short stories, right? That's the selling feature. It's what's advertised. By the way, I never, so to speak. But I should add that I never knew at the end of the books that the STITCHWRAITH stories were there, so I'm gonna go back and read the books on my phone after this and go to the end and see what the hell this STITCHWRAITH is everyone's talking about. I don't even know. But apparently STITCHWRAITH is supposed to be entered, because he keeps on using an entered asset when he mentions the STITCHWRAITH in his recent videos about FNAF. One also comes with the big bonus. In reality, each book is more like 3 1/5 stories. You see, each one ends with an epilogue, our little MCU post-credits teaser, giving us a piece of yet another story. The tale of the STITCHWRAITH, a story that appears to be spanning out across the ending of each and every book in this new series. And that alone would be pretty darn cool, right? Also, it's a brilliant marketing tactic to keep us buying more just to see the end of this thing. Slow clap.
True that.
Slow clap. But 3 segments in, and it's becoming clear that the tale of the STITCHWRAITH isn't just another horror tale. It's instead a running thread throughout nearly every other shorter story that we've been reading which in turn seems to connect it both to the original trilogy of books as well as even the games. So in order to understand what this thing is and where the lore is headed, it's time to go Easter egg hunting for a monster. Now, admittedly, my first theory on the Fazbear Frights books briefly covered the STITCHWRAITH, and back then I assumed he was entered. The Wraith was described in that book as a mysterious figure wearing a black cloak and wearing a white mask with features drawn in thick black marker. The description specifically calls out his 2 eyes, one of which appears to be blacked out. A big toothy grin with blood around the mouth and a limping or shambling walk. White mask, blacked out eye, shamble shake. It seems not Vanny. Maybe it's a animatronic. However, the epilogue for 1:35 AM threw that hypothesis out the window as it revealed just just exactly how the STITCHWRAITH was brought to life. A process that
So it's
actually
a
reveals
product of Remnant?
lot about
So it's a
how
possessed
the
robot?
series' mythos works. In this epilogue, we're introduced to Dr. Phineas Taggart, not to be confused with his friend Dr. Ferb Fletcher. Phineas is a bit of a mad scientist type, studying the untapped power of human emotion. As he says himself, quote, human emotion is slower to impact, more insidious. It emanates from us, or is excreted from us like sweat or tears, and it wafts outward like a noxious cloud soaking into the surroundings. In particular, his research is centered around the intense emotion of agony. In order to study it, we see that Phineas collects hundreds of haunted objects to search for this emotion trapped inside. Again, from the book, the word haunted could mean showing signs of torment or some kind of mental anguish. These items on Phineas's shelves weren't possessed by ghosts. The ones that were truly haunted were energized by agony. Agony, I'm convinced, radiates farther from people than any other emotion, Phineas said. My work is focused on my hypothesis that you can take a saturation of agony, add any sort of intelligence, even an artificial one, and they'll combine together to transmute the energy of emotion into the energy of physical action. This, I believe, is what explains what people call haunted objects. And already you might be starting to see how this all ties into what we already know about this franchise.
So he's trying to low-key explain Remnant.
We were introduced to the blueprints outlining how the sister location Scooper worked, and it was, well, it was not what we expected, to say the least. Through those blueprints, we learned about the mystery metal called Remnant and its ability to supposedly give life to objects that it touches. The novel The Fourth Closet took it one step further and showed us the Remnant metal being created and used. In that story, we watch as William Afton melts down pieces of the old animatronics, creating a Remnant soup that he then uses to give life to new living robots, specifically the Funtime animatronics. Quote, on the heating table rested the endoskeletons of the original Freddy's animatronics, welded and melted together, immobile and featureless, and still inhabited by the spirits of the children who had been murdered inside of them so many years ago, still filled with life and motion and thought, all trapped, all in terrible pain. Usually this goes into something mechanical, something I made, William said. If we remember back to Candy Cadet's stories of 5 things always becoming one thing, 5 kittens getting sewn together, or 5 keys melted down into one, this is exactly what those stories were referring to. But Phineas's experiments in 1:35 a.m. actually take it one step further and give us more insight into the true nature of Remnant. Things that are brought to life via Remnant aren't necessarily infused with a soul, but instead with agony, with intense human emotion, with extreme human suffering. This is important because it means that characters like Balloon Boy, the Mini Babs, and the Mini Arenas and Sister Location, heck, even animatronics like Mangle, don't necessarily need to have actual victims associated with them. We used to look at solving the mysteries of this series as having it be one-to-one.
Oh, and if he has, like, Remnant or Agony and stuff placed in, like, ones that don't have, you know, kids in them, I think it would make William Afton's job easier of ruining Freddy Fazbear's.
All the time. Susie equals Chica. Charlie equals the puppet. Cassidy equals Golden Freddy. But what we're starting to learn is that there are other ways to bring things to life in this series, that some animatronics may contain multiple souls, like we talked about last time with Golden Freddy, and some might not contain any souls at all, as long as it always ties back to some extreme tragedy filled with this all-powerful emotion of agony. So with that little analysis in place,
so he made robots come to life with just emotion itself,
with horrific tragedies, and
basically
some means funnel all the agony from them down into an endoskeleton, which we're specifically told is meant to be a stand-in for bones. So we're talking like a FNAF 1 or FNAF 2 era endoskeleton here. Phineas then puts the head of a large 3-foot doll on it, a doll whose description bears a shocking similarity to Blank, actually from the fan game Five Nights at Canada, and finally a battery pack before turning this beast on. And not only does this modern Frankenstein come to life, it immediately kills its creator, Phineas, seemingly by accident, surprisingly, and then runs off, hiding under a black cloak. The STITCHWRAITH has been born. But okay, why am I making such a big deal out of this thing? Why does this guy deserve his own episode? Well, because solving the STITCHWRAITH story in these books
helps you understand
like a game unto itself. You see, there have been very subtle clues hidden throughout the 9 other stories in this series that connect things back to the
how the
STITCHWRAITH.
robots can be.
My first clue was the battery pack Phineas uses
like
to power
humans
the
and stuff,
STITCHWRAITH as he's building it, because it's not
and that
just
some don't
any
have
battery
humans.
pack. It came from Fetch, the murder animatronic dog from book 2 of the series. Quote, the item in the second box was an
Wait, what?
Because it's not just... First clue was the battery pack Phineas uses to power the STITCHWRAITH as he's building it. Because it's not just any battery pack. It came from Fetch, the murder animatronic dog from book 2 of the series. Quote, the item in the second box was an animatronic dog that clearly no longer functioned. The dog was an ugly dog, with a triangle-shaped head and a wide mouth full of sharp...
So the stories tie into the STITCHWRAITH
battery pack. So immediately we know that the STITCHWRAITH story is happening after the events of the Fetch story from book number 2. So I dug around deeper and more connections kept coming. Earlier in this same book, in the title story 1:35 a.m. about the haunted Ella doll, there's one line referencing a man named Phineas looking online for a particular toy. Quote again.
Yo! I remember that! Because she was trying to see if it was haunted or not, or something was wrong with it.
Who was trying to find one of the dolls. His ad referenced the special Ella doll and said he was willing to pay a premium for the doll's energy. Overall, across the 9 stories published so far, 7 seem to tie back.
That would have made so much sense.
Allowing us to create a rough timeline of
had I actually read it.
Bear with me as
and
we
knew
go
it was
through
there.
this. We know that 1:35 a.m. and Fetch must come first because Phineas is alive and looking for the Ella doll, like I just mentioned, and the evil robot dog has just started his murder spree. From there comes the story we just covered.
Fetch never leaves him alone
and
either.
The STITCHWRAITH's creation. After that, he begins to roam the city collecting body parts for some purpose. You may remember book number 1 story to be beautiful, in which Baby hacks apart a human girl named Sarah in order to steal her identity. Sarah is rebuilt out of junk, only for her to fall to pieces at the end. Well, in epilogue number 1, we hear that the STITCHWRAITH was seen collecting those junk pieces of Sarah. Odd, right? And it's not the only time that it happens.
He took Sarah, though?
Number 2, there's the story Out of Stock about a group of friends who steal a defective plush trap doll.
For some reason. I really don't know why they did that. Oscar is stupid for that.
Rampage. The boys manage to escape by luring it
and then run it gets ran over by a train.
Number 2,
that's what plush trap gets.
On the scene, salvaging whatever he can find of the broken bot. And that's where it would seem to end if it weren't for one other small detail. You see, in one of the other stories in this book, Room for One More, about a security guard being force-fed mini Rena dolls in the basement of Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals, there's a passing reference to a restaurant called the Snack Space. Hey man, I was picking up a takeout order at Luigi's the other night and saw your ex on a date with the manager of the Snack Space. Seems super unimportant, right? Well, it would be if this was the only time that it was mentioned, but it's popped up in one of the other stories. In Into the Pit, the very
the dad was working there.
About the time-traveling ball pit, the Snack Space is where the protagonist's father works, which means that Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals' sister location is also in that world, which in turn connects it to one final story, Count the Ways, where we see an old, broken Funtime Freddy planning to execute a girl trapped inside
Millie.
And while these aren't necessarily directly tied to the STITCHWRAITH, it certainly feels like at some point all of these stories will come together, as though we're working on chunks of a larger puzzle. We've got a big chunk over here, that's the STITCHWRAITH connections, and a big chunk over here that's all connected through Sister Location and the Snack Space, and then you have a few other random pieces over here, and by the end I expect all of them will come together. So assuming that they are all connected, the timeline seems to go about like this. Lonely Freddy, the story about the kids getting mind swapped with mini Freddy dolls, has to be first, because it's the only one of these stories so far where Fazbear locations are open and ready for business. At some point, Freddy Fazbear's closes, leading to Room for One More about the underground facility filled with mini Renas hoping to escape, which would parallel what we hear in Sister Location.
And then the new kid would be next, right?
And even more so, the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
At some point, Baby and the mini Renas escape from that underground facility, leading to 1:35 a.m. with Phineas looking for the haunted doll and Greg activating the murder dog in an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's in
Dang! That animation.
The next major moment is STITCHWRAITH's creation in Epilogue 3, which then leads to his quest for body parts in To Be Beautiful Epilogue 1 and Out of Stock Epilogue 2. We also know that Into the Pit and The New Kid happen near the end of the timeline, since they both feature a closed down, forgotten, or repurposed Freddy's building. Also, there's Count the Ways, which is towards the end of this timeline, grouped with these other stories, since a retired Funtime Freddy is just randomly sitting in a garage killing kids. What does all of this tell us? What was the the purpose of doing all this work? Well, first, all of this seems to connect us pretty solidly into the book trilogy. The fact that we have an Ella doll infused with agony that Phineas wants his hands on perfectly matches the Ella doll that Henry made for his daughter Charlie. To quote from the fourth closet, agony erupted, flooding the room with its sound. A man lay curled on the floor, something cradled tightly in his arms, and when his mouth opened, the room shook with the sound of his anguish. Who is that? Charlie said anxiously. What is he holding? You don't recognize her? Elizabeth said. That's Ella, of course. It's all your father had left after you were taken. He cried over that cheap store-bought rag doll for 2 months, cried into it, bled into it, poured his grief over it.
Oh my God.
At which point, he makes the robotic Ella doll that we talked about in the last episode. So what we're seeing in these stories appears to be, at least to some extent, the aftermath of that trilogy of books. Which also means that we might already know the true identity of the STITCHWRAITH. It's a bit of a long shot, but it's my personal headcanon until proven otherwise. I think that the endoskeleton that powers the STITCHWRAITH, the main body that's become the conduit for all of this agony, is the same endoskeleton that killed Henry. The robot that he used to end his own life. The stabbing robot, which, let's be honest, is like the most complicated way to do that sort of thing. Like, build a robot to stab you to death.
The endoskeleton that killed Henry.
Creative types, man, they are weird. Anyway, we're told in the Silver Eyes that it's a basic Gen 1 endoskeleton with an unfinished face, which would explain exactly why Phineas needs to put a head on it. Quote from the Silver Eyes, she could see its face. If it could be called a face, its features were scarcely formed, crude and shapeless. Its blind eyes were only raised bumps like the eyes of a statue, seeing nothing but its own grief. We also know that this endoskeleton would be absolutely filled to the brim with agony. I mean, as far as endoskeletons go, a murder bot built by a grieving father is a pretty huge deal. And it's apparently an important enough character to this franchise to have also appeared at the end of the book trilogy. When Charlie is being attacked by Baby, it's this same murder bot and its trusty knife that Charlie uses to do them both in. I have a very strong theorist instinct that the STITCHWRAITH will, at some point during this book series, be revealed to be connected back to Henry and his bizarre death. Just saying, the pieces are in place for us.
God.
Oh yeah, and
sorry for saying that was Charlie.
The Fright series is connected a bit closer to the book trilogy, like it appears to be. We know that Book 5, Bunny Call, features a story about a man with gruesome burns over his body and an iron will to live. I mean, we already suspected that that was William Afton, but going back to see how his story ended in the fourth closet, we see that his death is far from certain. In his final moments, his catches fire and he's pulled into a massive furnace. But then, nothing. No official confirmation that that burning actually kills him. Therefore, a burned man in a hospital who refuses to die sounds like a certain yellow bunny we all know who always comes back.
Yeah. Do some
with that,
stupid
I've had enough FNAF for now. Oh man, it has been
enough
a lot.
FNAF
the new book comes out in early July, so at the very least I get a break for a couple of weeks. Thank goodness.
A couple of weeks? More like one.
No. Man, I am a little on edge these days. 2020 has really started to mess with my head. I need to relax. But I've seen all of this, literally everything on every streaming platform. If only there was something new to watch.
What is this?
The sponsor for today's episode, NordVPN.
I knew it. Anyway, guys, so yeah, that was Game Theory's Five Nights at Freddy's. Your pain fills us. Fuels us, whatever. Anyway, guys, if you guys want more game theory and FNAF content or content at all, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe for more Come Kiss Your Day, and turn on notifications. I will see you awesome kissers later. Peace out.